Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome to my review of the FlightFX Piaggio P180 Avanti. An Italian-built aircraft for the, I believe, first time on this channel. So it is only fitting that we're going to fly from Rome Ciampino over to Napoli, and this is going to be around about 35-minute flight in this beautiful commercial aircraft over here. Now, the P180 is officially released for Flight Simulator 2020 and available through Marketplace, but the developers did make it available through the Content Manager in Flight Simulator 2024 if you bought the 2020 version as well. But just as a small caveat here, it is not officially compatible yet, but it is available for download. And some of the things that might be a little bit off are some of the lights, even though they do absolutely look gorgeous in this simulator. Alright then, enough talking, let's go ahead and have a look at the aircraft itself. The P180 is rather, let's call it special in terms of its layout. You not only have your elevators right up here, but you also have these little wings in the front over here, which, contrary to common belief, are not actually canards, but you actually have a normal elevator available up here. The engines are configured in a pusher configuration rather than the normal puller configuration, which means that the propellers are further away from the passenger cabin, making for a very quiet experience in the passenger cabin. Overall, a very well done model by FlightFX and a very good looking one as well. Now, if we want to have a look at a couple of the details, you might say that the model doesn't look all that detailed on a first glance, but that's because this is basically a plastic aircraft and there aren't that many features on the surface that you could actually look at. You can see the level of detail over here, but if you look to those areas where some detail is actually in the real plane, then you do also find it in here on the simulated one, as you can see up here, or when looking down at the landing gear over here, which is very well detailed and looks really sturdy. It certainly has to be, since I'm the one flying it. So that much about the outside model on a first glance over here. Let's go ahead and head inside and have a look at the aircraft itself and at the passenger cabin. Now, we will have a look at the cabin in a little bit greater detail later on, but for now let's just say that it is a really good looking and very well modeled cabin. Now, as mentioned, we will look at it in greater detail later, so for now let's go ahead and close the door. So, bottom first, top second, and here we go. And then we can head into the cockpit. Equipped with the ProLine 21, we do have a modern navigation solution available in the P180, just like in the real one, that features a full FMS implementation. We also have an electronic flight bag, which has a couple of basic apps, in that you have the Navigraph charts available, you do have that general map available, let me just call it like that, and then you have a settings screen available, where you can control a lot of the settings of the aircraft. Starting from the top left, you can select your panel state up here, then you can choose between the different covers that you can install or remove down here, and then we can also control the doors from here in case you don't want to control them through the click spots within the cabin. We can choose between different cabin configurations where we can either choose executive or clutters, and we can show a lot of different food services, which I'm going to get back to in flight, as that's a very cool little piece of eye candy. We can also choose between different luggage types, which we can view inside the aircraft, and then we have an option that I really like, and that's the active noise reduction. Now, in the real world, you'd probably either wear a Bose A20 or a Bose A30 when you're flying this aircraft, and those are A&R headsets. In other words, pilots flying this aircraft are not really going to hear it the way it would normally sound, but you basically have that headset on all the time. However, flight simmers generally don't really tend to like those A&R sounds, because it just sounds very quiet, which ultimately is the goal of A&R. So, therefore, it's pretty cool that we have this option available on the run. Now, we also do have an automatic steering mode. I'm going to talk more about that one when we are actually taxiing the aircraft. Last but not least, we do have the ability to enable or disable engine damages. I am, of course, going to turn them on, and I'll show you a little bit about that in flight. You can also repair your engines down here and see the engine health status down here. By the way, if you do exceed the engine limits, they don't die immediately, but you rather see the health go down, and when it reaches 0, then you're in trouble. So pretty cool thing overall. So, the aircraft also comes with an almost 100-page manual, which I can absolutely recommend you to have a look into. But for the time being, let's go ahead and get started with the before start checklist. All checklists in this video are straight from the manual as well. So the entrance door is secure, the crew and passenger briefing is complete, the seats are adjusted, the switches are all in the off position down here, and then we can go ahead and turn the battery on. So, battery is coming on, we can open the system display right down here, and we have our engine instrumentation at the very top. Fuel quantity check, and we have 1,200 pounds on board almost. Let's go ahead and check if that is actually sufficient for a flight. Of course, we do have our weights in kilos over here from SimBrief. But yeah, 1,200 is probably a little bit too little. So let's go ahead and load the aircraft up. We gotta do this through the simulator inbuilt weight and balance menus for the time, because we currently do not have a dedicated weight and balance menu on the EFB, but they do plan to add that, so it is gonna come in the future. Alright, so our payload is loaded, then we can also take up some fuel, and that is loaded as well. Perfect, thank you very much. Alright, so the fuel is now checked, the park and brake is checked locked, and then we can turn the avionics to COM 1 only, which is going to bring up our comms so that we can grab the ATIS and prepare our aircraft for startup. So let's go ahead and find where the ATIS is actually on. Yeah, typical Navigraph in Flight Simulator 2024, so let's not blame them for that. That's because I'm using the aircraft in a sim where I'm, well, kinda not officially supposed to use it, but it works fairly well, except for this little thing here. And once you bring up the actual charts, then you have a lot less flickering as well. Alright, so ATIS 122.425. So 122.425, here we go. Let's set that active.
993 hectopascals. You have received ATIS information. Alpha. This is Champino ATIS arrival and departure information Alpha. At 1020. Type of approach ILS Zulu. Runway in use 15. Transition level 75. Wind 020 degrees. 8 knots. Visibility 10 kilometers or more. Clouds view 4,500 feet. Temperature 11 degrees. 2.05 degrees. QNH 1008 hectopascals. QF Echo 993 hectopascals. You have received ATIS information. Alpha.
Okay, so we have information Alpha on board. Then let's go ahead and request our startup clearance.
34X,
Sounds a little bit busy over here in Roma.
Affirmative, we are ready for departure with Hotel 064.
But let's go ahead and chime in to get our startup in a moment.
Quick, Flight 5, and good news, we found the departure route.
No, you don't need the departure route when you are getting a takeoff clearance anymore. You should have done that earlier, my friend.
Heading with the 064.
Itaro 521, welcome Fiume. Did you have a preference standard?
Negative, whichever, Itaro 521.
Very nice controller, only that it's taking up a little bit of time right now.
Eco Golf, Eco Foxtrot, stand is 232. Taxi.
Taxi Delta,
So,
Eco Golf, Eco
please do your
Fox,
readback, and then we'll try to get our
521.
clearance.
232.
232, grazie.
Roma, ciao, Pastis 180, information Alpha, request startup.
Pastis 180, Roma, hello. Startup approved. Information is Bravo, report when ready to come.
Startup approved, information Bravo, and we're ready to copy Pastis 180.
Pastis 180, clear to Naples. Rati Ray Alpha departure. RP6 uniform transition, runway 15. Initial climb 5,000 feet, squawk 1,000.
Passed is 180, cleared to Napoli via Ratier 8 Alpha, Rifi 6 Uniform, runway 15, climb 5,000, squawk 1,000.
Passed is 180, read back correct, again 1008.
1008, passed is 180. Okay, perfect. So, startup clearance is received. Then let's go for the engine start checklist. So, first engine start is going to be from the battery today. Anti-collision light, ground, power lever idle, condition lever cutoff, firewall shutoff valve is open. So, fuel pump, test and check main. So, fuel pressure light is out, fuel pump is in main. Okay, bleeder switch checked off. Propeller area clear, and then engine start switch to start, and at 13% NG we're going to put the control lever into the feather position. And with that our engine is starting up. Okay, so maximum 1000 degrees, oil pressure is checked, NG and RPMs are checked, and engine start switch at about 40% checked off, and that's off. Alright, very good, so then condition lever advance to flight idle, generator on, ammeter checked, that's down here and checked, and hydraulic pump switch. So, coming on, and the hydraulic light is going off. Alright, then we can do the cross-start procedure. Condition lever on the operative engine, flight idle. Generator on the operative engine on, ammeter checked. Firewall shutoff valve open. Fuel pump main. Fuel pressure light is checked off. Bleeder switch is off. Engine ignition checked on, and engine starter on. So, NG is rising, 13%.
Radar contact, climb flight level 240, turn left.
So power on, and the engine is coming up.
080 degrees.
Right, and climb to 24,000 feet with 204.
Echo India Victor at the mic, contact Roma radar 134.2, ciao.
Okay, so what's the engine doing? Looking quite good. Okay. So then, condition levers both on the ground idle. Generators on. And then, EPU on, avionics on. So, environmental control switches are checked and checked. Bleeders on. Then, landing lights off, ice protection system. These door warnings can come on, and the windshield heaters into low. The rest of the anti-ice can remain off for the time being. Then we can do our system warning test. So, the lamps are checked, fire detection checked, fuel quantity checked, landing gear warning checked, avionic fans checked, radar altimeter tested, overspeed warning, hydraulics, ground steering, and I think we gotta reset that through the steering button down here. Okay, stall warning, flaps, ice detection, and with that we are basically done all the way down here. So, lots of tests that you gotta do up there. Then let's move further down and we can turn on the position light and the fasten seatbelts. Well, and then we can go right down into our FMS. So for that, let's be sure to have the SimBrief flight plan up. And then we have a current nav database, and we have the correct position. Lima India Romeo Alpha 2, Lima India Romeo November. Our alternate is going to be Lima India Romeo Alpha once again, and our call sign is X-Ray Golf Oscar 180. Okay, execute that. Departure, index, departure 15. And we are leaving via the Ratier 8 Alpha and Rifi 6 Uniform. Execute, then onto the flight plan, next page, and we have Mike 729. Why did it enter that twice? Towards Papa November Zulu.
0572, Bravo, fully ready.
Alright, that's looking better. So, for the arrival, index, arrival, ILS Zulu runway 06, and we take the Papa November Zulu 1 Charlie arrival with the Oliva transition. And that's our route entered, so let's continue on to the performance setup. We have 6 passengers on board, climb to flight level 270 on today's flight, 0 cargo, and execute. Then onto the takeoff page, the wind is 020 at 8, the temperature, let's see, temperature is 11 degrees, and the QNH 1008. Alright, so runway slope 0, and then execute that onto the next page, rotation at 110. Let's go ahead and send that to the PFD. And then last but not least, we can go onto the VNAV setup pages, and down here have a quick look at our departure chart. So for the SID, we've got Ratia 8 Alpha, and that's a transition altitude of 6,000. Okay, so next page, straight edge, Romeo Mike Charlie 25, intercept radial 216 inbound to Ratia, and that's exactly what we have up here. Romeo R 110.8 can go into the radios, and the squawk then 1000 as per the ATC clearance. Alright, initial climb 5000. Come on. Here we go, 5000. We can press the toga button so that toga mode is armed, and nav mode can be armed as well. Alright, QNH 1008. Now, one thing that I'd love to be modeled, but that isn't at the moment, is an ability to switch from hectopascals to inches on the standby, so we kind of got to set it just based on the altimeter reading here. 410 seems about correct to me. Alright, so runway track is going to be 149, and last but not least, let's go down here and ensure that our trim is set correctly. Yes, that is a very interesting trim sound, but apparently that seems to be correct. So we are trimmed perfectly, and that's it. Okay, perfect. Then let's go for taxi clearance. Passt is 180, request taxi.
56, runway 25, line up and wait.
Locked.
Roma, ciao, Ryanair 1162 with you, inbound Galaxy, climbing 1.
And of course the guy doesn't care about 2 stations calling, he just makes his call. Okay, so most likely we're going Tango Charlie, Sierra Delta and Alpha to the holding point Alpha. Just to have that in mind already. Passt is 180, request taxi.
Passt is 180, Roma taxi setting point Alpha Alpha, runway 15 via Sierra Delta, Alpha.
Taxi holding point runway 15 via Sierra Delta and Alpha. Passt is 180. Okay, so taxi is as expected. Lights on. Park and brake off. And then let's go. So with the condition levers and ground idle, you do need a little bit of power to get the aircraft moving. But once it's moving, it's actually doing that very well. And it is very nicely controllable.
Up and wait runway 25.
Okay, so on to the taxiways. And here we go, that is Sierra Delta right over here.
Line up, report ready for departure. Golf backtrack, runway 23, line up and report ready, November, Juliet.
Okay, so we do have an auto feather and a steering fail warning. We can ignore the steering fail. I do believe that to be a bug at the moment. That appears when you run the steering test. Let's actually see if we can get rid if we just press that again. No, we can't. Okay, that's
Number
fine.
2 for departure, intersection Bravo Charlie is available.
Okay, so we are going on to Alpha over here, and then we taxi all the way to the full length. Now, I told you earlier that I would tell you about the automatic steering mode option that's available in the aircraft. So, contrary to your typical favorite airliner, the P180 has two different modes, because it doesn't have a tiller. You can see no tiller down here. It's all via the pedal steering. Now, the aircraft has two different steering modes. That's either steering taxi, which is what we've got active right now, and steering for takeoff and landing. You can switch between the modes using the mode steer button available on the control column up here. What it does is basically when you're in steering taxi mode, then you have a full range of nose wheel steering available. Quite similar to if you would be using the tiller in your favorite airliner. On the other hand side, if you switch into takeoff mode, then you only get limited nose wheel steering, quite similar to how things would be in the airliner when using only the pedals. When automatic mode is used, you can see it's just switched over to steering takeoff when we've crossed 20 knots of ground speed. So when you have automatic mode, then you don't need to worry about pressing the nose wheel steering buttons down here, so you can simply switch using the button in the real world, and in the simulation, I find it to be quite convenient to have that option available. Past is 180, runway 15, cleared for takeoff, we just need a minute for the run-up.
No, negative, it was for Russia 5956, Russia 5956, runway 25, we put...
Ah, 2515, very easy to confuse, okay.
5956, takeoff, runway 25.
So we are going to hold short.
Hold station, Roma is closing, monitor Unicom 122.8.
Too bad they're closing.
Bye.
Well, Unicom is going to be chaos in the first couple of moments, so I am just not going to switch over just yet. Okay, so we're at the holding point, then we can continue with our engine run-up checklist. So that's park and brake set, condition levers into max. And then power levers advanced to 2000 RPMs, but first of all, let's give the aircraft a small moment here to actually stabilize the engines. It seems to change the torque a little bit when I'm changing the condition levers. But here we go. Alright, advancing my power levers now, so that we get 2000 RPMs. And here we go. Well done. So, propeller overspeed test. That's the button down here. And that's the right engine dropping. Then we can try the left engine. Looking good. So, auto feather test. Power levers idle. And auto feather is triggering. Okay, and thereafter auto feather switch into the arm position. Flight instruments check, and they are looking good. And that's our engine run-up completed. So, let's go ahead with the before takeoff checklist. Circuit breakers are all checked in. And anti-collision light, air, windshield heat as required, probe and stall heat are on. Seatbelts, no smoking signs, on. Okay, engine instruments set and checked. Engine gauges checked. Warning and caution lights. We are aware of the steering fail button, the rest is checked. Then transponder set. So that's right down here and into TARA. So transponder is set, bleed air switches checked on, fuel pumps checked main, condition lever checked max RPMs, flaps checked mid position and that's confirmed on the PFD as well. Longitudinal trim, and we have takeoff trim set, roll trim is set and rudder trim is set. Okay, oil coolers are off. And that's the checklist completed. Jump into traffic, past us 180, line up and take off runway 15.
Approaching 15.
Yeah, hi. Okay, we're clear on the approach, and we're clear on the right as well. So, you're gonna be a little bit careful when setting your takeoff power. So let's just complete the lineup.
Runway 15.
Bring it to a stop, and then we're going to set the takeoff power first. So, at first let's choose an intermediate setting here. And now I'm going to advance the power slowly until we're actually right about at the maximum torque. You can see auto feather arms. And here we go. Very close to maximum, but not over the limits. That's the important thing. Alright. Timing, brake released, and take off. Oh, and the landing lights should have been on. So with the steering mode in takeoff, the plane is going to be much easier controllable on the center line here. So if you're not using the automatic mode, be careful with that. 80 knots. Rotate. So, I find the aircraft to be pretty hard to rotate correctly, because you can see it eventually just jumps up in the air. Okay, positive climb, gear up. So the rotation is really... I'm not sure if that's an FS 2024 thing. After all, they did say that 2024 might behave slightly different than 2020. Alright, in any case, we're up in the air, so autopilot on. And then we can select flight level change. And we'll go up to 160 knots. So that's set. Okay, we're accelerating, flaps up. Well, and with that, we're up and in the air. Okay, so auto feather off above 150 knots, which we have. And then landing and taxi lights. They want them off according to the procedure, so I suppose we're just gonna do that. Okay, so continue the climb to flight level 270, which is the planned cruising level today. And then we've also just got to ensure that the cabin altitude target is actually set for that. So let's go up to 7,000 feet cabin altitude. We can already see that the differential pressure is building down here, so our cabin is pressurizing normally. Alright, so climb checklist please. Climb power, set, airspeed, 160 knots. Seatbelt and no smoking signs on for the time being. Pressurization is checked and windshield heat on low. Climb checklist complete. So, lovely rate of climb, 2,000 feet a minute. And that's even though we are rather heavy, getting fairly close to the maximum takeoff weight here. Currently following the Ratia 8 Alpha departure, so straight ahead then intercept the 216 radial outbound from Rome VOR towards Ratia, and then the left turn out, and once we are in that left turn I will eventually give ourselves a nice little direct. So engine anti-ice, what's the temperature? Yeah, 0 on. Set standard. And standard is cross-check, passing flight level 66. Now, checked. Okay, so you can see with increasing speed, our torque is decreasing, so we can add a little bit of power again. Just gotta ensure that we don't exceed any of those engine limits, so be sure to add the power slowly. and then you can bring it nicely up to the maximum so that we can get the best possible rate of climb. That works fairly well. In the lower altitudes, it's the torque that you're gonna pay attention to, but mostly because it is decreasing. However, when you're getting to the higher altitudes, the ITT is eventually going to get pretty hot. 820 is the maximum that the ITT can take, and it will turn, I believe, first amber then red when you're exceeding those 820. So that's something that you've got to pay attention to during your climb out, and that's what's going to be limiting you in the upper flight levels. So down here you're limited by torque, later on you're limited by ITT. You can see this kind of nicely. With increasing altitude our torque is decreasing, and whenever we are adding more engine power to get the torque back up, the ITT is also slowly going to rise. So that's basically how this works. Okay, so got to cross Riffi above 9,000, we'll easily be able to do that, and then we have Papa November Zulu below 17,000 already. So, suppose that's the limiting number for our flight. Rather interesting that the SimBrief calculations actually are asking for flight level 270, because I have a feeling we aren't really going to make that. So yeah, tell you what, I am actually going to change that cruising level. Make it 230 instead. And that should recompute our top of descent. Here we go. Nice, and with that we are up and on the way. So we're above 10,000. Cabin pressurization is checked. The cabin is climbing really fast, by the way, already at 5,000. What's the rate of climb there? Yeah, 900 feet a minute is quite a lot. Let's turn that down a bit. Can give me like 300 feet a minute, that's absolutely fine. So, manual cabin pressurization system does require a little bit of attention here if you want to have the smoothest possible experience for your passengers. Well, let's take a little shortcut, fly direct to Papa November Zulu and execute. And then we can of course change our cruising altitude towards flight level 230 down here as well. Now something we can do now while we are now in a nice climb out, don't have to worry about our systems too much anymore. The only thing we got to do in the climb is to occasionally correct our engine thrust to ensure that we are always climbing at the best possible rate. Let's go ahead and go to the back of the aircraft to have a look at the passenger cabin. So, lovely little 6-seat cabin that you have over here. However, I should say it's not just 6 seats, but it is 6 seats and a toilet. So let's go ahead and start having a look at the cabin from the back to the front. This is our toilet right up here, possibly one with the best possible views in the world, even though you will not really be able to take a look out there while you're sitting on your throne. However, you do have privacy over here, as you can close that one up, and you can even take a look into your colleague's luggage when doing that. So if you're gonna steal something from your wife's bag, that's how you do it. Now the seat itself can be folded up, and that's your toilet hidden right below it. That's how it works on most smaller business aircraft, and the Avanti is no exception there. What's quite cool though is that you have a leather armrest while sitting on the pod, and you can control your lights here individually. So all those buttons do work in the cabin. So you've got the vanity light, you've got indirect light, and what you like. If you're looking for toilet paper, look no further. You've got your wet towels over here, and then you do have some toilet paper available in some of those cupboards, like down here. That's pretty nice, isn't it? You also do have a bin down here, and even more storage space, including a hand disinfection and a couple of towels available down here. Pretty cool to see all of this properly simulated. Then going a little bit further into our passenger cabin, let's take a seat down here and have a look at our options. So we do have a table available, of course. Then you do have cabin lighting controls down here and your power plug down here. You can move the entire seat to make it a little bit more comfy down here, and that same thing of course goes for the other seats as well. And now something that's really cool, if you have those tables out, and if we go back to the front to the electronic flight bag, we can actually control our catering down there. So let's go ahead and do that. If we go into the settings down here, we can, for example, select pizza service. And now we do get a lovely little pizza right over here. What better food for a flight from Rome to Napoli, isn't it? Even though some Italians are probably going to disagree about the toppings, but I suppose that's for a different topic to talk about. Now, other things you have available are an executive configuration. If we do choose that, then we get laptops back here, or we can also go for the full-plated dinner, if you do like one. Or we could also go for some clutter back here, so like that you really have a lovely cabin, and look at that, they even have some good read back here. Now that's the kind of dinner that I'm up to. You can also close all those window shades as you see fit during your flight, so if you're worried that anyone might be looking at you while you're either sitting on the pod or elsewhere, you can control all of that from the cabin. Now let's go ahead and get rid of all that stuff. Now, as I mentioned, in the real world you would normally fly your Avanti with a noise-reducing headset on. So how about we just take a listen to what that sounds like. Activating the ANR right now, and I gotta say, from my personal experience flying aircraft, not turboprop aircraft, but that's pretty much the same for any kind of airliner, isn't it? The sounds seem pretty accurate. I do like them. I do actually like them very, very much. So, I'm a huge fan of those ANR headsets. You guys gotta know if you like them or not, but that's why we have an option like this available. So, finishing up our cabin, we do have a lot of storage spaces over there, and actually none of them is unused. So, you've got the coffee machine up there. You've got a lot of the additional stuff you'd need for the coffee machine. You can grab some towels and all that good stuff, even some card games from right over here. Need some cutlery? It's all available. And likewise, if we move through all those little cupboards that we have in the cabin, there's a lot of equipment, or water bottles, or whatever you could possibly be asking for. Even some plates available right down here, so that's pretty cool. Now, down here we do have blankets, and of course if we go a little bit further to the front, then you do have a torch available, and you have a fire extinguisher somewhere. Don't ask me where exactly, it shows me down here. Well, some more FS Elite magazines. I like that. I do like that. And, of course, within the reach of the pilots, you do have summer snacks available. That's really cool. Really a lot of attention that went into the detail. Oh, hello there. What are you doing? So that's interesting. That was with the autopilot on. Why did it... I suppose I don't want to know that. Might have been me walking around as I'm using the WASD keys combined with a shift key. I might have done some control input there, but interesting that the aircraft turns upside down and the overspeed warning comes before the autopilot disconnect warning. Now that's certainly something that I would question. Actually, we just saw the autopilot was still engaged when we started our recovery, so that was interesting. That was interesting. Alright, let's maintain flight level 210 here. No sense to go further up if the top of descent is already approaching. Here we go. So let's trim it out, get it back down to level 210. Altitude capture. And here we are. Okay, autopilot on. Direct to Papa November Zulu to recover the nav mode. And here we are. So, will you please start turning left now? Dear autopilot? Gotta admit, this is a little bit annoying right now, but yeah. So let's try that again. Autopilot disconnect. Autopilot engage. And now it's hopefully following the route. Let's just update the direct here to Papa November Zulu. And now it's doing something on the controls. That's good. Not exactly sure what had happened there, but I suppose we're just going to keep it like that. Okay, so that much about the passenger cabin. Now, one more thing that I want to show you is the lights inside the aircraft. After that, we'll have to deal with our setup. So let's just quickly turn to nighttime over here and explore some of the lights. So this is the default setup where you've only got the backlight of the cabin, and that's it. Now, you do have custom light controls available on the sides here. So you can either control the panels, that's the backlights that I just talked about. Let's turn it back to the middle position. And you can control the brightness of the displays down here. Do note the reflectivity of those on the rest of the panel. That's quite cool, isn't it? Now, next up, we can also control the floodlight. By default, it's off. Switch is down here. So let's turn it into dim. That's what it looks like. And then we can turn it into bright. And again, that is what it looks like. Let's go ahead and initiate our descent here. So let's just put that altitude down to somewhere. I think 8,000 is the next limit. Then we can select VNAV. And that's it. So VNAV path has captured. Alright. Now, let's also go ahead and turn the floodlight on. So we've got the cockpit floodlight down here, and yeah, that one certainly turns it up pretty bright. The cabin has its separate dedicated light switch available down here. When you turn that on, that is what it looks like. Pretty cool, even though the developers do emphasize that 2024 shows the lighting a little bit different here. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's close you up again, and then we're also going to, come on, close those tables in preparation for our landing. But overall, really, really immersive looking lights, especially with that little light blend up here. I like it very much. I do really like this. This is looking really cool, isn't it? Alright then, let's turn back to daylight. So back to live conditions. Then we can turn all those individual light controls off down here. And here we are back in our daylight configuration. So, contact me by arrival, 134.2.
Alpine 987 November Romeo, Roma, ciao, continue the same flight level 130 at moment flight to Teano to join the Erika 1 Charlie arrival, number 4 in the approach. Flight to Teano to join the Erika 1 Charlie arrival, continue the same flight level 130.
Napoli, ciao, Pastis 180, flight level 175, over at Papa November Zulu.
Pastis 180, ciao Emmanuel, welcome in Naples, continue to descend to flight level 90, flight direct to Ukluf at the moment, expect alert Zulu runway 06.
Pastis 180, descent flight level 90, direct to Ukluf. Thank you very much. And expect the ILS confirm Zulu 06.
FM Patti 1.
Got it. Alright, so direct to Uglov.
Establish ILS from 0. Which Malta 348, contact tower 118.5.
Here we go, and execute. No VNAV path condition. Well, in that case, let's go to vertical. Okay, here we go. VNAV path has recalculated. Okay, so let's start working on our arrival for a little bit here. So back to the Navgraph chart, and we are going to Lima India Romeo November today. Then our approach is going to be the ILS Zulu, runway 06. We're inbound to Uglov. That's basically on the extended center line. So the frequencies and the courses are automatically tuned. 110.15 will come in a little bit closer. We can of course tune it manually as well if we like to, but the system is going to do these things for you. Now let's see about the minimum. That's 680 feet, and before I forget it, we gotta get that cabin altitude descending. Here we go.
Report indicated speed.
Fast is 180, speed 290.
Path is able to reduce the speed to 20 knots, then you may fly 6 now to Oleva.
Reducing 220 knots, direct Oleva, past is 180, thank you. Okay, so let's go level change mode here for a bit and reduce to 20. So 220 is set, and then direct Oleva. Nice little shortcut. I like that very much. Alright, to help ourselves with the vertical guidance, let's go down here and select VNAV. And here we go, that's our VNAV guidance up there. So we need 1,200 feet a minute rate of descent in order to get there. Right, let's do that. So 1,200 feet a minute. That was a gear warning. I pulled the thrust levers back a little bit too far, and here we go. Okay then, let's go ahead and dial up the minimums. 680 we set, and that's in. And the speed is approaching 220, perfect.
Hey, apologies, my mistake. KLM 124 Bravo.
Okay, MSA 8400. Nice double rainbow out there, by the way. Okay, and with all that out of the way, let's just make sure that the cabin altitude is actually coming down. So this time we actually got to increase the rate of descent. Looking for about 800 feet a minute or so. Should be fine. Field elevation is about 200, so somewhere down here. Okay, perfect. So we need 1,000 feet a minute now. Let's do that. Well, and then the only thing we've got left to compute is our approach speed. So let's go down here. So landing in.
Papi, you may continue to send 6,000 feet, QNH 1007.
Fastest 180, descend 6,000, QNH 1007. Okay, 6,000 and 1007 is pre-selected. Now one little bug here is that I can't set this for as long as I'm above the transition altitude. If you need a workaround, you can just go to VNAV setup and then put the transition level up like that. Say 18,000, execute, and then you see the QNH is now flashing, and if we now press the knob, then it goes right to local. And it also adjusts the standby for you, by the way, which is a nice little feature. The real one wouldn't do that, but it comes in handy. It comes in really handy. Okay, so let's continue where we last left off. That is setting up our approach. So let's go back to the performance approach, and then let's go for the weather. So currently in Napoli we have wind 100 at 6, like that. The temperature is currently 11 degrees. QNH 1007 is in here. It is a dry runway, even though they do have some light rain in the area. So I tell you what, let's go for a wet runway. No slope and execute. On the next page then it does calculate our approach speed, which we can send. And then our performance factor tells us we need 1058 meters for our landing. So, easy going, isn't it? Well, and that's about everything we've got to do up here. So, going through 10,000, let's turn the recognition lights on.
You can continue to send 4,000 feet after Oleva, clear less Zulu runway 06, report established.
Passed 180, descend 4,000, cleared ILS Zulu 06 out of Oleva, call you established. Okay, so let's switch over to the weather radar down here.
Alpine 9F7 November Romeo.
See if there's anything on here. Yeah, a little bit. Close to the field. That's fine.
Reduce to 10 to give you short Alpine 9F7 November Romeo.
Okay, so that's pretty much our setup completed. And that's everything we had to do. So now we just fly it straight towards the final. And while we're doing that, let's go ahead and enjoy the outside views a little bit, shall we? Just a cool looking aircraft, isn't it? What is it doing?
We are inbound.
What is that autopilot doing? So, manual flight.
611 Roma, ciao. Continue the Galaxy 1 Charlie at the moment. Information Yankee 1007 decanage and send fly level 110.
So,
okay, we expected the Galaxy 1 Charlie arrival for runway.
Let's get it in trim again.
1007.
Get it back towards Oliva and hope that ATC didn't see what we've been doing here.
Red note 611. Actually, you can fly since now to Opune.
We go direct at Lune, red nose 611.
611, and after Lune for planning, expect Oleva for the LS.
Okay, so we are back in Mount Eleva, speed is around 220, we're descending back on profile.
The Oleva for the final approach on 06, red nose 611.
So let's go heading mode for now. Autopilot. And here we go again.
Alpine 79R 7 November Romeo, turn right heading
So LNAV.
turn right heading north.
Right heading north, Alpine 97 Romeo.
It's gonna be shortly for the short delay for LS.
Strange things that it's doing here. So let's tell it direct to Oliva once again so that it doesn't go in circles.
578 Delta, Tower 180.5, ciao.
Okay, and here we are again. So, tariff pre-selected. Now, I have a theory on what might be happening here. And my theory is that the aircraft system, for some reason, picks up my WASD keys that I'm using to move the camera around. So my theory is that it's picking up the WASD keys to do an autopilot input for some reason, and that turns the aircraft away. But, of course, needless to say, that shouldn't happen. I'm definitely going to report that one over to the developers.
Left turn 597 November.
Okay, well, luckily he didn't see our little turn. So, temperature is -2, we're about to enter the clouds. Anti-ice is on already. Perfect. This time I'm playing safe. This time I'm using the normal external view and not the camera. You can, of course, capture some really nice perspectives using the camera, but I don't want it to turn over again.
But you have on speed.
Free speed, Pastus 180. Okay, well, I am going to keep the speed up because I want to get to my destination. So let's see. Oleva is probably 12 miles away since it is in 4,000.
Fine, 9F7 November.
So I'm going to keep the speed for the time. You can see that it is already sensing the localizer down here and probably the ILS as well.
9F7 November Romeo, continue the descent 4,000 feet.
So one of the things that I really like about the P180 is how quickly you can reduce your airspeed. If you bump those thrust levers into idle, the thing really goes down quickly. Okay, he said we're cleared for the ILS, so the approach mode is armed. So the airport is located somewhere over there, if I'm not mistaken. Gotta say, this looks really fantastic, doesn't it?
Readiness 611, descent level 980.
It is at 90,
And Readiness 611, apologies, is at 9,000 feet, KNH 1007.
It's 9,000 of course, and it's 1007.
So there is a little bit of precipitation that's probably gonna drift onto our final approach track. But that is fine for the time being. So the localizer should come alive any moment. I'm waiting for the glide slope to come alive. And when the glide slope is alive, then I will reduce my airspeed.
Speed 180 knots, you may fly to Oleva, descend 4,000 feet, clear less 206, report established.
So, quick check of the cabin altitude, and that is all the way down already. Perfect. Localizer capture. Pastus 180 established on the localizer.
Pastus 180, contact tower 118.5, welcome to Naples. Waiting your video about the P180, ciao.
118.5, give me approximately 1 hour and you'll have it. Pastus 180, bye bye.
Thank you, ciao man.
Oh boy, I like him. Alright, so. Thrust idle. Glide slope is alive.
Could you repeat, please?
Airport 033, you are cleared at destination Lima Consul Alpha, Galaxy 7 Golf departure.
So, approaching the final, the landing lights are on, speed is coming down nicely.
6,000, squawk 5567.
Sorry, I have some issues with my headphones.
Okay, glide slope capture.
Sorry for inconvenience.
No worries, happens all the time, believe me. Clearance available via text, no feedback required.
Go around altitude 6,000 set. Okay, so yeah, as expected, that weather kind of moved into the final, but we'll just keep it on autopilot for the time being. The anti-icing is on. Let's also turn the wing anti-ice to auto for a moment. Tower Buongiorno, Pastus 180, ILS Zulu 06.
Pastus 180, what a tight call sign. Tower, buona giornata, runway 06, clear to land, wind 100 degrees 6 knots.
Runway 06, clear to land, Pastus 180. That's a nice water effect on the windscreen, isn't it? Okay, let's go to idle thrust right now. Quick check, landing operating speed 181.
Free for clearance IFR to...
So let's just cheat a little bit.
Via
Autopilot off.
7 Golf departure.
We'll just pull it slightly above the glide so that we get the speed below 181. Okay, gear down.
567.
And back up to the glide slope. So, auto feather armed.
Approaching Quebec 1.
Okay, the gear is down. Let's just turn the autopilot back on here.
Yeah, Quebec.
Until we can see the runway at last, because there is one more shower that we are going to fly through.
Ciao. Emmanuel.
Ciao. Okay, so the speed is coming back nicely.
Oh, I see. Ciao, Emmanuel.
Ciao. Alright, so flaps operating speed is 170, so we can go to flaps mid right now. Now the speed is coming down nicely. 150 is the flaps operating speed for the flap full setting. So field elevation is 300, that means at 1,300 we got to be stabilized. We are past 150, flaps full. Speed coming down nicely. And we're stabilized in about 1,300. Perfect. Keeping the speed slightly higher here intentionally because of the turbulence. Now this is the point where we would really need a first officer to read the checklists for us. Okay, puppies in sight.
Approaching 06.
Checked. Okay, autopilot off. Slightly offset ILS, so flight directors off. Alright, I'll remain on the puppies over here, disregarding the glide slope. Minimum. Continue. And all visual. So, power idle, slight flare.
And
we're done. So the aircraft does have reversers. Let's go ahead and use them.
1,200
And you can see that it brakes
remaining.
really beautifully when you use the reversers.
Alpine Liner 17 Foxtrot, runway 06, line at way.
Open way, runway 06, Alpine
Well,
901.
and here we are.
Alpine Liner 7 November Romeo, reduce
So,
final
37 minutes in the air. We certainly had a couple of adventures there.
Alpine Liner 17
And here we go. Runway is vacated.
Takeoff wind 100 degrees 6 knots.
Very efficient tower controller here.
Runway 06, Alpine 901, Quaker Web, Fox.
Okay, so those are going off. The flaps into the mid position. Anti-collision light and recognition light can go off. Taxi. Landing light to taxi. And that's
Practice 180 with the Napoli taxi stand 20 via Tango Sierra and Quebec. Ciao.
Stand 20 via Tango Sierra and Quebec. Pastis 180. Ciao.
Ciao, Emmanuel.
Grazie. Okay, so Tango Sierra is going to be to the right-hand side. So let's get on there in order not to block the exit. And once we're on there, we can then start to worry about the exact stand and where to go.
Alpine 97 November Romeo, expect lane landing cleared.
Alright. So, stand number 20. Let's go ahead and find that. That's right up here at the terminal, okay. Perhaps we should ask for a parking somewhere over here in the 50s.
Alpine 97 November Romeo, runway 06, clear to land with 10.
Or on the other end side, if they want us to go there, then we probably just will. Alright, so... Prop levers onto ground idle. Here we go. makes taxi a lot easier. And here's something. You might have noticed that things got really, really quiet. Now, that's because we are still on the ANR sound set. If we put that off, you can hear a lot of additional sounds all of a sudden start to play.
Alpine 991 Quebec Fox have identified contact drama 134.2, ciao.
Alright, just got a very nice
134.2, ciao, grazie.
Grazie.
Just got a very nice message from the controller over here via private chat. So, grazie mille. Okay, so let's go ahead and complete that taxi. Basically, we're going straight and then to the right around the terminal, and then we're parking on the other end side of the terminal. I guess what they want to do is we park as close as possible to the terminal so that our passengers don't have to walk through all the rain and just can go straight in. Suppose they may just not have any let's call it appropriate vehicles available at the moment. So, straight ahead, via Quebec, that's how they want things done here.
Airport 033, Roger, standby.
So, the Portugal wants to push, let's make sure that we get past him as quick as possible here. Very nice rain effects, by the way. That's looking really good on the windshield.
Alpine 97 November Romeo, benvenuti Napoli, taxi stand 53 via Tango Sierra. Ciao, buona giornata.
Stand 53 via Tango Sierra, 997 Romeo.
Airport 033, once cleared of Papa 180 aircraft taxiing left to right behind your pushback approved QNH 100.
Okay, so Quebec goes further to the left, and that's how we get to our terminal as well.
Pushback and start approved QNH 1007, Airport 033.
Okay, they seem to have all the vehicles ready on our stand over there. So yeah, I guess they really just didn't have any appropriate vehicle to get our VIPs to the terminal without getting wet, so that's probably why they're parking us right onto one of those airliner positions. Or maybe it is because of the ambulance waiting over there, because after my flying, or rather after those two very interesting rolls that the aircraft did, we might need one, possibly.
Good afternoon, Napoli Tower, red nose 6 on runway, established 06.
Nose 611 Napoli Tower and buona giornata, runway 06, clear to land with 100 degrees 6 knots.
Okay, and here we are. So, park and brake set, then let's go ahead and shut it down. So, the heaters are going off, then generators off, avionics, COM1 only. Well, and then feather and off. Alright, engines running down. In the meantime, bleed air off, hydraulics off, cabin is depressurized, and all the anti-icing is off. Fuel pumps off. Fuel shut-off valves closed. EPU off. So, props are off. Then power off. And with that, welcome to Napoli. A little bit of an adventurous flight, I gotta say, but on the other hand side, I have a feeling that's just related to me using the add-on in 2024. When I did use it in 2020, I didn't have such problems with the aircraft turning over, so I take the blame for that one, and I wouldn't call it out to the developers. I am gonna mention it, of course, because they surely want to fix the aircraft for 2024, but overall, let's go ahead and get to some feedback over here. Piaggio 180 Avanti in Flight Simulator 2020/4. Beautiful looking aircraft, beautiful sounding aircraft, very well animated cabin, and a good looking cockpit with good looking night lighting as well. The flight model has a couple of quirks. The rotation on one hand side, and then the autopilot just being susceptible to those keyboard inputs when moving around, either the camera or moving around in the cabin. Those are definitely things that I'm going to report to them so that they can fix those. Apart from that though, landing the aircraft is especially interesting because of the, let's say, interesting configurations with the small wings in the front, which are not canards, they do emphasize that. And then the wings in the back, the aircraft has a very interesting flare behavior, but you can see it is really easy to actually land it properly. So lots of fun and overall few minor quirks, but keep in mind we are talking about the initial release version over here, so I am sure that they are eventually going to sort those out. With that said, would I recommend the FlightFX Piaggio P180? I definitely would. Few things, as we've already talked about, but overall it is a fun aircraft to fly. You can get it all the way to flight level 410, which is just crazy for a turboprop aircraft. And up there it's flying superb speeds as well, and has a very good range of around 1,500, 1,600 nautical miles. So a very good replacement for a lot of business jets that has the much lower operating cost of turboprop aircraft. But now I'm excited to hear what you think about it. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments underneath the video. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, thank you to the awesome Watson controllers for today's service, and then I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.